Watching Adventure Time Distant Lands is a strange experience for me, because after Come Along With Me, I had no desire to continue the series. They stuck the landing, no need to ruin it, but here we are. In my experience has been the following: the one I forgot, the one we all wanted, and the finale we f***ing needed. Come Along With Me was great. It was a solid conclusion to our adventures in the Land of Ooo and the massive cast we had come to love. Adventure Time started as a show focused on Jake the dog and Finn the human, before slowly growing into a story brimming with interesting characters and world building. It was the right way to end the show. A grand send-off to the thing we all grew up watching. But it did come with a caveat that Finn and Jake, our heroes, don't really do a whole lot after stopping Gumball. It wasn't a huge problem for me, but if you watched Adventure Time as the show of Finn and Jake, I could understand why you'd come away unsatisfied. But if satisfaction is what you're looking for, whew, Distant Lands Together Again is going to be your shit. This episode made me cry, and I can count on one hand the number of shows that managed to do that. This was easily the deepest and most poignant of the Distant Lands specials. Originally, this was meant to be the final special to be released, but then due to production shenanigans, it came third. Part of me wants to caution you to wait until the next one comes out so you can just watch this last, but it's an experience so good, I don't have the strength to tell you not to watch it. My attempts to fairly review this episode proved to be impossible without spoilers, as every time I started writing about it, I would just slip into a deep dive about what the story meant and what it represented. So I gave up on making it a review. Instead, I made this mess. If that's not what you're looking for, I get it. If you want a reason to go watch the show, consider this my endorsement. For everyone else sticking around, thanks. Because I'm certainly not a more talented elk, but I am a dear fan of the show, and I'm gonna try my best.
What time is it? Time for you to shut up!
The episode starts with the classic Adventure Time opening, skewing the one created for the Distant Lands specials that we've seen previously. From the very start, the creators want you to know that this episode is different, more connected to the original series. This special is here to give you the feels, and it starts early. The episode proper begins with a dream sequence that at first pretty indistinguishable from a regular Adventure Time episode, but almost immediately, small hints are sprinkled in that tell you that this is all in Finn's head, with ice golems of Uncle Gumball and Peacemaster attacking, people he didn't meet until after he lost his arm, to Finn's voice being way deeper than it was back in the early days. But the misadventure quickly takes a turn as after stealing 50 flavored ice cream, they have to free Turtle and the worst princess from the Ice King, easily succeeding, but Finn's inner pain seeps through the cracks as a single line from Jake,
"Everyone's alive!"
Yeah!
Dream tries to distract Finn from his grief, which would lead him to realizing that this world isn't real. But even Dream Jake seems to be aware of his predicament, acting as his subconscious. And after being frozen by the Ice King, Jake tells Finn to go have fun without him.
We'll meet up later and enjoy all this sweet ice cream, alright?
A harmless suggestion, however, with the greater context of Jake's early death, loading it with a lot of pain, and speaks to Finn's longing to be reunited with his brother after death. And so Finn refuses to let his brother go, instead dragging his frozen body with him for future adventures. A literal representation of what Finn did after Jake passed. And this one line, it destroyed me.
The worst thing to ever happen to me.
Oh, come on. You still had plenty of other things to live for, right?
Yeah, but deep down, I just kept waiting for the day I'd finally see you again.
Because for as much as stories like showing people overcoming grief, moving on with their lives, the reality is, it's a lot harder than that. There's very few cathartic moments where everything just clicks. It's more of a marathon where you're constantly having to reaffirm, no, this is what I need to do. It's hard to get over that loss. And even though we do get hints of what Finn did, that he lived a long life, had lots of adventures, even being joined by his grandniece Bronwyn, and he definitely lived a long life. That happiness that he had was still tinged with sadness. Because Finn, every time he felt joy, would always get sad because he wanted to share this experience with Jake. And now, having been given a chance to fulfill that fantasy, Finn clings to Jake and won't let him go. Much to Dream Jake's chagrin, showing that Finn, on a subconscious level, knows that Jake wouldn't want him to live his life holding on to the past. Even as Dream Jake tries to crawl into his own grave, Finn won't let his brother go, refusing to fill the literal hole in his life. The separation anxiety is strong with this one, and Finn begs to eat the 50 flavored ice cream with Jake, a direct reference to the 50 layers of death we see later, and a metaphor for Finn's desire for a double suicide with Jake, so they could be reborn together again. Yeah, didn't expect to get this dark this quickly, did ya? Finn's pleading falls on deaf ears as his brother simply says his goodbyes and heads to his grave. Finn's trauma of not being able to die with his brother is enough to shake Finn from the parasite controlling him, and we get our first look at old Finn. It seems even old age wasn't able to damper Finn's adventure lifestyle, as the first thing he does when he's free from the parasite is just be amused at the situation. He's not surprised, he didn't stop adventuring. Till the day he died, he was probably out there exploring and fighting other things. So old man Finn just looks around, he makes calm observations about his surroundings, and is just pretty chill with it. Just another day in the life of Finn Mertens. Though Finn does sweat at the idea of him not remembering how he got here, because even old age can be pretty scary once you're hitting it. One of the first things Finn notices, though, is people coming from the black curtains, though he himself can't leave through them, making this some fun visual storytelling. Though the presence of the mind creatures do seem a little suspect. Like, it'd be easy to write these off as parasites feeding on the recent newcomers to the land of the dead, but given the happy memories they give, they might be closer to Adventure Time's version of Limbo, giving the recently deceased a chance to experience their happiest moments, peppered in with a slow realization of what's befallen them. This could be a decent way of letting people accept that they've died, rather than just immediately throwing them into their assigned afterlives. Finn's trauma caused him to prematurely break out of this process, and he proceeds to free others, running to the Guard of Eternity.
Finally bit the dust. Cashed in my chips. Bought the farm.
Taking a moment to process his death, before immediately becoming ecstatic at the chance to see Jake again, not even caring how he died.
Cause of death?
Who gives a toot?
Which is just classic Finn, and probably the best way to brush off the fact that our beloved hero died. Because yeah, Adventure Time, despite its traditional age range from young boys to adult stoners, has never been a stranger to the topic of death. From the Lynch's quest to end all life, to the nuclear apocalypse that created Ooh in the first place. Death is a specter that has hung over the show for its entire run. But to make what was originally the final episode take place after both our beloved characters have died is as bold as it is morbid. Though with the conclusion of this episode, they pulled it off beautifully, even if it came at the cost of making Finn kind of dismissive of his own life and the possible friends and family he might have left behind. It's not a huge thing, but it does kind of put me off a little bit. Together Again is a story about the fraternal bond our heroes share. It's not a PowerPoint of what Finn did after Jake's death, leaving us free to come up with our own ideas. After getting past the Wind Guardian a second time, Finn sees a familiar figure, though not the one he was hoping for, or me.
Finn, my man, congrats on dying.
Yes, it's Mr. Fox, a recurring character who you remember not caring about. Mr. Fox is Finn's assigned guide to the underworld. Apparently running the whole underworld is too big a job for Death himself to do personally, so he assigns souls that the deceased are familiar with to take them to their final place of rest. With incentives apparently, as Mr. Fox is working to get a hypoallergenic pillow. As in his words,
Dust mites around here. Apparently dust mites have souls and dies, which I did not know about.
Finn, however, could care less about where he'll end up and only wants to see his brother again, something Mr. Fox can't help him with. As it's way above his pay grade, Finn does take the time to learn how the land of the dead runs on one's own perceptions, with the location changing based on your preconceived notions of death. And it's not just limited to the landscape, death's denizens can also be changed. Finn subconsciously de-ages himself, but thanks to his awareness of his past lives, can take on their appearance as well, which we get a quick rundown of, from Shoko to the comet and a butterfly before his buff baby self. Finn decides though to take a more familiar form, selling on his iconic blue clothes and white cap. Finn makes a conscious decision to keep his robot arm, because it was losing his arm that made Finn go on a journey of self-reflection and personal growth. Plus, after spending most of his life with it, Finn might be more comfortable with it than with his original flesh and blood appendage. Mr. Fox tries to get Finn back on track to his destination, but our hero needs to find Jake, so they can fulfill their plan of being reincarnated together, ignoring his destination of the 37th Dead World. The same plane of death we saw Abraham Lincoln go into to reclaim Jake's soul after killing him. Which, yikes. If this is what Finn was supposed to spend all eternity in, I guess all those years of kicking people's butts and the occasional shittiness didn't do his soul any favors. This judgment, though, is immediately overruled with the appearance of an Undertaker, angel-like beings who travel between dead worlds using musical instruments in service to New Death. Finn heads to New Death's castle, where he meets a familiar face.
Tiffany?
Yes, Tiffany! Finn's self-important nemesis is also here. And even Finn is unsure how he's supposed to feel about it. Tiffany, having long been just about everything to Finn, seems to have settled on friendship on this occasion. Letting Finn into Death's castle, the formerly Zen Stone Gardens has been turned into a rebellious teen clubhouse, as the Undertakers all seem to be troublemaking youths content to live the good life thanks to their new boss. These minions are a perfect choice, as the new Death himself is very much of the same mold. Swinging his scythe around as if it were a toy and pounding back, not beer, while his lackeys hang around telling him how cool he is. Frat Guy Death, though, has a lot more going on than you'd expect. Though, let's interrupt that for more comedy gold.
Like a blanket.
Tiffany's attempt to hang with Finn meet a quick end, as the impatient hero will stop at nothing to find Jake, having already been given his location on the 50th Dead World, the highest level of death and meant only for the most select souls. ND is not the chill, friendly caretaker his father was, though...
Asshole mullet! I'm sure you'll hit him next throw, sir. I missed on purpose!
Yeah, ND's a man-child with daddy issues and teetering between violent mood swings. ND settles down to listen to Finn's request, but dismisses it as Finn tries to use his clout with old Death to get a favor, killing a flashback where the original Death tried to get his teen son to rake the rock garden with him, in an obvious attempt to teach ND self-control and possibly a chance to keep him away from his new friend. And all this is done with Death never saying a word. A great way at showing the distance between him and his son, but it's also a consequence of Death's voice actor, Miguel Ferrer, passing away in 2017. Death's silence allows them to keep the character without recasting him. A respectful choice. New Death, however, is anything but respectful and refuses to rake the gardens, lashing out at his father. The results of this confrontation? We won't see till later. With New Death in charge, kind of obvious, ND reveals his plans to destroy the 50 Dead Worlds and to end the cycle of reincarnation, effectively ending all life as we know it, as the lost souls will have nowhere to go and no chance of being returned to the world of the living. Horrifying Finn, not just because it'll be the end of the world, but also because it flies in the face of Finn's own rebirth plans. You can't touch ND though, who quickly has Finn dead to rights, but deciding to spare him after seeing his resolve to get to the 50th. Being thrown out of the castle, Tiffany is positively miffed at being betrayed, declaring them blood enemies again. Finn tries to excuse his actions because of his desire to see Jake again, a feeling Tiffany also shares. Hugging it out, Finn steals his dimension hopper, showing off the selfishness that probably got him sent to the 37th in the first place. Teleporting away, we get a quick glimpse of the numerous dead worlds that people are assigned to, with the 30th dead world reuniting Finn with Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig. This idyllic afterlife seems to be a tranquil paradise, where people spend their days in peaceful bliss. Truly an afterlife worth aspiring to, and one fitting for the friendly and kind Tree Trunks. But as we explore the other dead worlds, we discover things aren't so purty everywhere, with them ranging from psychedelic album covers to realms of punishment, with one realm being dedicated entirely to having people trapped in a perpetual cycle of eating and being eaten, while the first floor seems to leave souls in tar pits with nothing to do but wait and be harassed by monsters hanging at the pit's edges. Forever. And there also seems to be a pretty broad net of people who end up here, with obvious ones like Maja and Slime Princess's sister Blogatha, but TT's ex-husband Wyatt? Choose Goose? No, wait, I can actually believe that one. But yikes. Eternal damnation and poor company. Talk about a buzzkill. Now this raises an interesting question though. As we'll see, reincarnation is a natural part of the life and death cycle. While souls are assigned to a dead world, they also appear to have a choice to give it up in exchange for being reborn, which kind of seems like a strange choice. As if you're chilling in the 30th level, yeah, why would you want to get reincarnated immediately? But if you're down in the first, people would be leaving that place en masse. No one would be down here. So this makes me think that for the shittier dead worlds, they're stuck there. If not permanently, They're filling out sentences where they have to stay there for a long period of time before they are given the chance to be reborn. But as we learn, people also seem to be able to earn the right to go between different dead worlds, adding further complexity to the inner workings of Adventure Time's underworld. With that last tasty morsel being given to us by Finn's adopted parents, Joshua and Margaret, who are happy to be reunited with their son and inform a frustrated Finn more on the nature of the 50th Dead World.
You have to not want to get there.
It's Zen or something.
Yes, it appears not wanting it is the requirement to find it. A task that Finn, as impulsive and goal-oriented as he is, can't possibly fathom. He still enjoys a brief reprieve to be with his parents again, before jettisoning off back to his quest without saying so much as a hi to his other brother Jermaine. Which, ouch! I guess that connection isn't too strong, and it's a great meta joke for Jermaine's general treatment throughout the entire show. He is a true non-factor. As Finn struggles with not wanting it, Tiffany arrives, and to let his hoodie-wearing cohort spirit bomb the dog family's house and the dead world out of existence. Finn is left stranded in the empty void, alone again, and believing his family to be lost forever. Falling into despair, grief ages Finn into a skeleton. But there's also anger in this sadness, as Finn feels betrayed that Jake didn't wait for him at the entrance of death. An understandable but selfish desire, as it's unfair of Finn to ask Jake to put his afterlife on hold for him. Finn probably knows that this is an unfair thing to ask of Jake, but it's a gut reaction that we all make from time to time. Ironically though, it's Finn's emotional breakdown that allows his reunion with Jake. After decades of separation, Finn and Jake are finally together again. This emotional reunion is undercut by Jake's maybe joke.
Yeah. Who's Jake?
See, Jake, fresh from the 50th and having achieved Nirvana, is not completely there. Enlightenment seems to have legitimately given Jake trouble remembering the here and now, as after being one with the universe, the events of his own life are slow to return to him. Struggling to even recall who Finn is. Being one with the universe, great for your spiritual side, not so great for personal reunions. Jake eventually stops joking around to remember who Finn is, commenting how he heard his tortured soul from the 50th. But upon seeing his brother,
You're doing just fine. I'll see you when you get to the 50th.
seems Jake mistakes Finn's happiness at seeing him again as being his complete mental state, and tries to just leave, which Finn is not having, pleading for him to stay, talking about their plans to die and be reborn again, but these pleas fall on deaf ears, as Jake has grown beyond worldly cares and become a Zen a-hole. This seeming callousness reflects an actual critique of Buddhism, as by detaching themselves from the world in pursuit of spiritual enlightenment, it allows worldly problems to go unchanged and injustices to continue. Jake's attachment from the world has left him unable to help, let alone see the struggles that Finn is going through, telling him to just let go of his suffering and to seek out enlightenment and join him on the 50th. Can I just say, it is perfect that out of the entire cast, Jake is the character to get enlightenment. Because Jake's character is always shown to be one of living in the moment, very rarely stressing about future events or things outside of his control. Jake, while obsessive at times, his easygoing nature is one that would make him a natural at attaining higher levels of existence. And as we all remember, he spent an entire episode as a brick just to appreciate the experience and narrate what he sees. Jake is just down to vibe, and it is this calm nature that makes Jake a perfect fit for Nirvana. Even Dream Jake seems to be aware that while this may come naturally, it's not a place that Jake should be.
This ice cream is so good, you have to sprinkle dirt in it just so your mind can handle it.
Dirt and grit indeed, as it is witnessing the abuse that Finn suffers at the hands of the Undertakers that drives Jake to give up his eternity to fight for his brother, reuniting the duo and the return of the Jake we all know and love. Of course, these good times are cut short by the appearance of ND, who used Finn's quest to gain access to the 50th, having been unable to gain access to himself despite his status as king of the underworld. Rushing in, we get our first look at the 50th, and it is beautiful. A spiral of golden fields where its denizens can be one with the universe. This calm beauty disappoints the angry teen ruler who decides to break the 50th, throwing all of its inhabitants to the first floor, much to the non-horror of the 50th's denizens. As enlightenment isn't a place, it's a state of mind, creating a direct contest between them and the people on the first, who also remain unmoving but resent their fate, with the physical threats that surround them reinforcing it as a place of suffering, when true peace could be found from within. And as we saw, when they were given the mere idea that they could escape, they swarmed Finn, desperate to leave this place. But in their hurry, they lose their chance as a panicked Finn teleported away. Perhaps if they had waited for Finn to pick them out one at a time, they wouldn't be here now. But alas, they broke the spider's thread and lost their chance. Putting their heads together, Jake drops the bomb that the dead can ghost call the living, a fact which outrages Finn as it makes Jake's silence even worse. But Nirvana, beyond worldly cares, you get the picture. So the two decide to call PB, and this led to one of the stranger realizations when I watched this a second time. Princess Bubblegum is actually dead in this special. At least that's the vibe that I get, with her probably having passed away not long after Finn. Because if he knew she was gone, he wouldn't have tried to call her. And the first hints of this come when we first see Bubblegum's castle, because it's not like it used to be. It has all these magical symbols and items adorning it, and magic, as we all know, hot button issue for PB. She has a very low opinion of the thing. It would never use it in decoration. But when we zoom in on the tower, we find Peppermint Butler cleaning a statue made in her honor, which is very much in the style as one would use in a memorial. And the big thing is that Peppermint Butler is wearing PB's crown, explaining the occult decoration of the castle. So this leads me to think PB either passed away or relinquished her throne to Peps. But this is the thing. Finn and Jake were clearly trying to contact PB and found Peps in her stead. Maybe it's more location, not person homing, but the crown, the decorations, all of this leads me to think that PB has passed. And if that mysterious figure in the Come Along With Me truly is Marceline, she is going through a rough time. Also, Peps has Finn's bones. That's just classic him. Peps is unable to directly assist them in fighting New Death, but he can give them a chance to speak with Life, who may be able to help. Lighting up a magic candle, he sends the two on their way, where they arrive in Life's bright underwater realm, and a nod to life first coming to existence underwater, making a fitting domain for the source of all life, with the benefit of the undersea location staying a perfect contrast for the dry desert death rules over. And it's here we see Life craft a new body for a soul made out of clay, who is disappointed at being a bug. Finn and Jake plead with Life to aid them in stopping ND, but despite her son's actions being out of control, she seems to only want to focus on her work, seeing it as a substitute for her family, implying a possible falling out between life and death. Life's inaction and job are cut short though by her kiln going out, robbing her of the ability to create new life. Her son's plans on ending the cycle of reincarnation has affected her personally, so now he must be stopped, causing her to create a weapon with which they can defeat ND. She tries to warn them of the price that comes with it.
Shoot.
Their candle's gone out, and they're now left with a weapon they don't know how to use, and a warning they didn't hear. Finn and Jake run into the unwelcome appearance of Tiffany, who decided to save Jake's parents earlier, and Jermaine, and is holding them hostage, forcing them to eat cake while he rants. This ranting and painting are all Tiffany desperately wishing for a family and to be liked by Jake, deciding to try and kill Finn to break himself out of the funk that's consumed him. But he's unable to go through with it and instead ends up saving him, joining them in yet another attempt to win Jake's approval. And acknowledging ND's reign won't help anyone. Bringing them to the castle, Finn and Jake disguise themselves as Shoko and her tiger, possibly signifying Jake's past life was the tiger, and that they've been together even in previous lives. Or it's just Jake picking a look that would match Shoko's backstory. Either way, a toot from Jake caused them to crack up and give up their identities, forcing Tiffany to stay while the brothers face ND, who's in the observation room watching his undertakers destroy one dead world after another. Facing the frat lord of death, the giant snake man proves to be incapable of standing up to Finn and Jake now that they can actually hit him. But they prove to be unable to slay him, causing them to question if they're using the stick right. Banting over how they should unlock the stick's true power, ND attempts at jumping the boys is stopped by a talisman Finn's mom gave him, an object of paternal affection stopping someone who lacked it. That's gotta hurt. It's here where ND reveals the truth of what happened that day at the Rock Gardens. After trying to hit his dad, Death simply dropped the rake and hugged his son, showing that he truly did care. But ND is confused by the display, and a familiar voice encourages him to strike his father. And not in the right state of mind,
You bit your dad?
Yeah, I bit him. Shut up.
causing him to transform into a tree. It seems when Death is killed, they transform into objects reflective of who they were in life. OG Death became a tree, while ND would become a snake eating its own tail, reflecting his own self-destructive tendencies. Perhaps all the skulls in Death's rock garden are the remains of the previous incarnations of Death, but in killing his father, the position of Death is transferred onto him, along with all the responsibilities that came with it, explaining how the impulsive man-child came into the role of ruling the underworld and the contempt with which he holds the position, with his destruction of the underworld being little more than a tantrum of someone who didn't even want to be here in the first place. But the story has one last reveal for us, with ND bursting into a fit of laughter that slowly transforms into an all too familiar one.
Yoink!
Finally dead, aren't you, child?
Yep, the Lynch is back. Now, I audibly groaned at this point because despite how iconic the Lynch is, he has slid into being a non-threat for me, being repeatedly bested by Finn and Jake and being reduced to a ridiculous hand, which is just perfect for the joke that he's become. You see, much like that one other popular villain right now, it was the Lynch all along. It was the Lynch that had befriended young Death and undoubtedly started to corrupt him. With ND's murder of his father being spurred by the Lynch's voice, and in a wide shot, whoop, there it is. This explains ND's opening scene where he softly called his hand his best friend, with the Lynch having feuds with Death and has been using ND's teen angst to complete his mission of eradicating all life permanently. By destroying the floors of Death, he stops souls from being reincarnated, leaving the living world to slowly die out, with only the immortals and cosmic beings left to remain, completing the Lynch's mission at long last. Burning the talisman, the boys realize one of them needs to slay ND and take the mantle of Death. This presents a quandary for our dear friends. Finn and Jake don't want the other one to become Death, as this would separate them for all of eternity. Jake insists that he be the one as the older brother to take the job, protecting Finn one last time. Finn, meanwhile, refuses to be reincarnated without his bro, seeing it as pointless and tries to become Death himself. Shifting between their past lives, they fight, but quickly devolve into a slobbering mess, telling the other how much they love each other while knocking themselves senseless. And it's here, Mr. Fox has to step in and take the stick to tell them, quit being idiots. And this coincides perfectly with the Lynch breaking free and attacking them. Thankfully, Mr. Fox is holding the stick the right way.
Mom?
His last words being a realization that his own mother had killed him. I wonder if New Death felt betrayed or relieved in his final moments. But for all his angst and anger, his destruction of reality had to be stopped. And Mr. Fox was apparently the man to do it, and is now being transformed into Death. And the Lynch is finally thrown into the void, hopefully never to be seen again. I personally would have felt more comfortable if he was reduced to nothing, but that's still pretty fitting. A vehicle for the plot to the very end. Mr. Fox, now Death, restores the floors and returns all the wayward souls trapped in floor 1, and gives them comfy pillows to rest on. Surely this will be the beginning of a new, more comforting Death. Though Mr. Fox releasing the souls also includes the ones that were there originally, perhaps giving them a chance at a lower sentencing and a chance to grow. Except Wyatt. Just fuck Wyatt. With the day saved, Finn's family is finally reunited with the surprising addition of Tiffany, who Margaret and Joshua have saved/adopted into their family. Because yeah, Tiffany needed a resolution, might as well give him this. Everything is done, and Finn finally admits to his own struggles.
Still had plenty of other things to live for, right?
Yeah, but deep down, I just kept waiting for the day I'd finally see you again.
Confirming my earlier interpretation that Finn's dream sequence were yes, Finn was never able to get over his brother's death. Finn struggled with living without his best friend, and while he still kept on going, it was never the same. A sad but real struggle, one that Finn comes to recognize as being selfish, as his actions put pressure on Jake to always be at his side and hampered Finn's ability to live his own life. Having come to this realization, Finn decides not to go to the 37th Dead World, choosing reincarnation alone and a chance at a fresh start. Jake is happy with Finn's growth and floats off to the 50th, back to his own peaceful ending. He's unable to go through with it though, rushing into the portal. Jake's impulsive nature shines through at last, and now he claims he's just going back for funsies. This goes against the whole epiphany Finn just had, but he's crying tears of joy, and the two hold one another as they hurtle into life, unsure of where or what they'll be, but are just happy in the knowledge that they'll be together, throwing one last fist bump and closing out the story of Jake the dog and Finn the human. It was one hell of an adventure, and definitely worth the time.